Hello you lovely lot, my name is Max, welcome back to my YouTube channel and another video. Today, taking on something a little bit different with no matches coming up this weekend with the international break in full swing. I thought we would go back to the Nottingham Forest tier list today, doing a keep or sell of the current Nottingham Forest squad. How this is going to work is I'm going to rank every single player in the Nottingham Forest squad at the moment according to Wikipedia. This is just the first team and excluding players currently out on loan, so I'm not going to talk about players like Nuno da Costa or Carl Jenkinson because they're probably all going to get sold anyway. And I'm going to be talking about whether I would keep them in the summer or whether I would sell them in the summer. I have included the players who are currently on loan at the club. Obviously, I would like to keep pretty much all of them. Some are more realistic than others, but for the ones that I wanted to keep, I'm still going to say keep, even if it's pretty unrealistic that they're going to stay at the club. Hopefully that made sense. You should hopefully be able to follow it as we go on. And of course, as usual, I will leave the tier list in the description for this video. And whilst you're down there doing it yourself, don't forget to drop a like on this video and drop a subscribe whilst you're down there. It'll be greatly appreciated. We're nearly at 400 subs and I'm hoping to hit 500 by the summer. And with that being said, let's get into it and start ranking these Nottingham Forest players, who I'm going to keep and who I'm going to sell. Here we go then, there's about 25 players to rattle through. There's just in the order on the Wikipedia page, so hopefully you can follow that at home yourself. And yeah, I'm not going to spend too long on every player because like I said, we've got about 25 players and I want to keep this video under 20 minutes. So let's crack straight into things with currently the number one of the club, Ethan Horvath. He has been playing, I think, the last 4 or 5 games of the club since Bryce Summer got suspended against Stoke City. And at the time of recording, he's put in some really good performances, kept some really important clean sheets and made some very important saves. Had a pretty decent game against Liverpool during the week in the Cup. And overall, I think I would keep him. I think he's been a really good addition to the squad. I wasn't too sure in him in the summer. I didn't really think he was going to get a place in the team. But with the suspension to Bryce Samba and how erratic his form can be, I actually think he's a pretty decent signing and is a very able deputy to the Congolese shot stopper. Okay, next up we got Jed Spence, probably the most high-profile player in this video, linked to the likes of Tottenham, Arsenal, Bayern Munich, Manchester City as well, I think, at the moment. Really, really good. Just genuinely, I think, maybe alongside one or two of the other players in this video, one of the best players we've had at the City Ground, at least in a decade. He is so, so good. And his ceiling, potentially European quality, potentially England international level. I genuinely think he's that good. Yeah, I'm going to put Jed Spence in the keep category. It's unlikely he's going to stay at the club, of course, with the 20 million fee rumoured, or at least that Middlesbrough have put on his head. With 2 goals and 4 assists in all competitions this season, I can't really look past him ever not being an option for us in the summer, should we get promoted especially. Next up, we've got Tobias Figueiredo, a very good servant to the club, although I'm going to say for the first time in this video, he's probably a sell. I think there's just better quality in the market at the moment. I think we could probably cash in, get a decent amount of money for him with Dane Murphy and his contacts, particularly in North America. I do think there is better options on the market at the moment for Forest. And I think we're pretty well stocked at centre-back, even with that 3 at the back system and with the injuries we have at the moment. And I would basically, it was a toss-up between him and Loic Umbeso. And I think I would rather keep the younger player than Tobias Figueiredo. Although a great servant for the club, I was actually very close to leaving in the January window and has stepped up very well in recent weeks. I would probably look to move him on the summer and reinvest into someone a little bit higher quality in that position. Speaking about players who are a little bit higher quality in that position is Joe Worrell, another player who's been heavily linked to Premier League moves to the likes of West Ham and Burnley. And of course, he's going straight in the keep category. I think should Lewis Grubben ever move on or retire, I think he's probably the next likely candidate to be captain of the club. He's already, as you can see in the picture, already captained the club several times this season and has become very quickly one of the most important players in this squad. Had my doubts about him, didn't think he had it really in the air in particular, but I think in recent weeks and during our FA Cup run has really stepped up and become probably one of, if not the most important players in this team at the moment, particularly under Steve Cooper. Next up is a hat-trick of centre-backs is Loic Umbeso, a player who's only made 9 appearances in the league for the club, has got a goal though in fairness against Middlesbrough last year and just doesn't have it quite yet. I think it's mainly been injuries that have kept him out of the team. Has played a bit for the under-18s, the under-19s, and the under-21s, or, you know, the youth teams, those kinds of teams, and seems to be impressing pretty well. It was basically, like I said earlier, a toss-up between keeping him or Figueiredo, and I would much rather keep Loic Umbeso. I think he's got the highest ceiling. Obviously, that pedigree, has 2 League One titles with PSG, and is still only 20 years old, so there is time for him to come good on that potential, a lot of time in fact, and I think I'm going to stick him in the keep category. It was very much a toss-up. I definitely think there's better value in the market. He's probably on quite a lot of wages, but he's probably got the mustard, and I think he could probably cut it out at championship level at least. Next up, a pretty obvious one, club captain Lewis Grabban. He's going straight in the keep category. He is somebody who is our top goal scorer in the league this season and in all competitions. He's currently out of an ankle injury, but you can imagine as soon as he comes back into this team, he's just going to hit the ground running and keep bagging goals. Obviously, the club captain as well, hugely influential in the dressing room. And I really hope, in fact, that should he choose to retire at Forest, he joins us in some form of club ambassadorial or even in a coaching role, because I think he is so important to the club, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, and has basically carried us for large periods, particularly during that 7th place finish we had under Sabri Lamucci. He was easily our best player that season, or at least, you know, in the top 2 players alongside Lolly, and just so important. And yeah, definitely going into the keep category. Okay, now then we've got a player called Jackie Colback coming up next. Somebody who a year ago, even probably 6 months ago, if you'd asked me, I would have said sell. He's on a lot of wages, he's a bit older, and I do think there's better value in the market than him. Ask me now, important first team player, if not crucial. He has become very quickly one of my favourite Forest players, somebody who does a great job along that midfield, plays so well at left wing back when we need him to as well, particularly when Max Lowe's been out at stages this season, and he is an absolute keep at this point. I would maybe look to tie him down to a longer contract that maybe drops his wages a little bit, because I can imagine, having played in the Premier League previously for Newcastle and Sunderland, he's probably on a fair chunk of wages, and if we're looking to bulk out the squad a little bit in the summer, I definitely think that's something we should maybe look at doing. But he's a definite keeper, and somebody hopefully long term, or at least in the short term, can help stable the ship and maybe even look at getting some promotion pushes next season and this season. I think the next one is our first loan player, and that is Keenan Davies. And he is somebody, I'm going to put him straight in the keep category because I think this is pretty obvious. And I think, to be fair, Aston Villa themselves have said that they're open to the bid, or open to the idea of him leaving the club and joining us on a permanent deal. 5 goals and assists in about 800 minutes so far since joining us in January, and has been a really exceptional signing. Presses that back line so effectively, so strong, so physical, and just such a danger man up front. I mean, you saw against Liverpool in particular, he was just exceptional holding that ball up and getting out into the channels quickly to Zinkernagel and Johnson, and he is just somebody who does that job so well for us. Very much a facilitating forward. He's not going to be prolific for us, and I would be surprised if he even broke 10 goals and assists come the end of this season. But that being said, he facilitates this team so well and offers us a really good option. Something a little bit different to Grabban and the Sam Surridge, of course, in the squad at the moment as well. Okie doke then, our next player is another loan player, and it's Philip Zinkernagel, who is currently on loan from Watford of the Premier League, and I'm going to put him in the sell category. Obviously we don't sell him because he's not our player to sell, but I wouldn't look to bring him back to the City Ground next season. If Watford get relegated next season, I would be very surprised if they moved him on, because he's obviously done a great job for them in the Championship previously. And if I'm being totally honest, he's been a little bit inconsistent for me to be a key player in a promotion pushing team. At least at Watford last season, he was sort of interchanging with players like Ismaila Sarr and others at Watford. With us, he is basically that main left-hand side threat for us, and I just don't think he's got the output or the consistency to sustain a promotion push. And I think if he's only a lone player, we should maybe look at shifting him on next summer and bring someone with a little bit more output into the team, or at least reinvest into other areas in the squad that need a little bit more attention. I hope that one's not too controversial. I feel that's the first real controversial one that I've said so far, and I feel like I've said in the past that I would bring him back to the City Ground, but at the moment I'm just not feeling it, and maybe I'll change my mind by the end of the season, but currently I don't think I would look to bring him back. Next up is Jordan Smith, a player who I completely forgot was actually at the club until about a week ago when he signed a new contract. Obviously, because of that new contract, he's probably not going to be leaving anytime soon. I have put him in the sell category though, because I don't think we need 3 keepers of that quality in the squad at the moment. We have a couple of decent academy players in goal for us at the moment, and obviously even Horvath and Bryce Samba as well as options, and I just don't think he ever really will get any time on the pitch. He's clearly a good lad, he's clearly somebody who has a good influence in the dressing room and has sort of played up and down the youth teams as well when we've needed him to, and obviously came through the academy as well, which is great to see. But I just don't think we quite need a player, a third choice goalkeeper of his quality, of the wage categories probably on as well, and I would maybe look at moving him on, or at least sending him out on loan, getting some minutes, and then if he needs to come back, if we sell one of our keepers, he can always do that, and he'll always do a shift because he's always been a solid player for us. Next is Gaitan Bong. I mean, he's getting on a bit, he's going in the sell category. I don't even think he's played for us at all this season, in fairness, which says a lot because we've had a lot of issues at left back. with injuries and with a lack of depth in that position. Him not getting any minutes really doesn't surprise me. He's a pretty solid defensive left back, but when you're playing in a wing back system, he just doesn't offer anywhere near enough going forward. And if I'm being honest, I'm surprised we kept him beyond the summer, and I would personally look to move him on, particularly now that we've got a little bit more depth in that position, and it looks like we're looking to invest in that area in the summer as well. So Garner probably would look to move on in the summer. Next up is Richie Larrea, who is somebody who joined us in January. Hasn't kicked a ball for us yet, but I'm still hopeful he'll be an important contributor to the team. He is on the older side in sort of the peak of his career, so you would hope, should he be playing for us next season, he's going to be sort of smashing about for us. That being said, I have really high hopes for him. He's a very versatile player. He's got experience for Toronto, his former club, playing right back, left back, wing back, right midfield. He can play all over the sort of flanks on the pitch, and I think particularly with how Steve Cooper has changed the shape at times this season, his flexibility and his ability to be deployed in other positions is pretty essential, and I think as a squad option can't really go much worse than that, so he is definitely going in the keep category. Okay, it is another fullback. A lot of fullbacks we go through at the moment. It is Max Lowe, and he is somebody who is going straight in that keep category. I would pay Sheffield United whatever they want for him. I think he's been fantastic. Forget the Derby ties, obviously having come through the Derby Academy, he is a top quality player. I think he's probably a Premier League quality left back, playing in the Championship at the moment. I don't think his ceiling's quite as high as Jed Spence, although that being said, Jed Spence is a very talented player, and yeah, I would look to bring him back in the summer. I've been very impressed with him. Has had his injury issues this season, which has sort of curtailed the form that he's been able to put together, but when he has been able to put together sort of half a dozen appearances in a row, he has been fantastic for us, and he is somebody I'd definitely like to see play back at the City Ground next season. Okie doke, our next player is the striker Sam Surridge. You guys got a couple of goals since joining the club in January, and I've been pretty impressed by him. I was never really that impressed by him at Bournemouth in the past, and I didn't really think he had what it was cut out to be a prolific Championship striker, but I think off the bench he is a very suitable option. He's clearly not going to be higher in the pecking order than Keenan or Lewis Grabban or even Lyle Taylor potentially if he came back in the summer, but he's a very solid option off the bench, has Premier League experience, is a good lad, he's young as well, he's got the opportunity to improve, and has experience playing under Steve Cooper, so really ticks a lot of boxes for us, and is a really good squad rotation option. We now move into the tricky winger Alex Mighton, who is starting to frustrate me a little bit. I'm a little bit disappointed he hasn't quite made that jump into the first team yet. It's probably not his fault. I know he's had a lot of injury issues, particularly this season, like Joe Lolly with his knee, and he has been good in spells when he has played, but you would feel he's starting to get to that age now where you really want him to start contributing to this team. He has been a really hot prospect for us for a good couple of years now and has started to deliver on occasion. It just needs that little bit of polishing, and I believe under Steve Cooper he probably will get that. Steve Cooper's got a really good reputation, particularly at Forest so far, developing wide young talent, and I think he's got potential playing in that position. It's just a case of whether he can really get that bit of output out of him that we need. But he's definitely a keep. I think his value's too high at the moment not to keep in the squad. I think he's got great potential, and if we choose to sell him, at least we'll probably get a decent fee for him. Next we've got Cafu, obviously probably the one you thought of there first, the central midfielder who arrived a couple of years ago and was sort of like, I wasn't really sure on whether he had a long-term future at the club, but he has been a very good, solid squad option for us, particularly under Steve Cooper. He had a pretty decent stint, actually, was probably one of our better players under Chris Hughton, which is really saying something because we were absolutely trash under Chris Hughton, and has been sort of a sporadic player in the first team, particularly in recent weeks, but is definitely someone worth keeping around the squad. He's a great personality to have in there and somebody with a lot of experience at a very high level of football, and I think that is invaluable, particularly when you're pushing for promotion. Now we've got Xander Silva. I think that's how you say it, Xander Silva. Much like Cafu, somebody who has just been really good as a squad option this year, starting to add a bit of output to his game, and has actually been pretty good in recent weeks, had a really good few cameo appearances, sort of driving down that right hand side, so I would keep him as a really good squad option and somebody off the bench who can do a bit of damage down that right hand side. Next up is probably the player who came to see me talk about, Brennan Johnson. Do I cash in my chips and sell him off to a Premier League team, or do I look to keep him? Personally, for me, I would keep him. I think he's just far too good to get rid of, and he is basically our ticket out of the Championship at the moment. 17 goals and assists in all competitions this season for the Welshman, and just going from strength to strength. I would say he and Jed Spence probably have the highest ceilings in our squad at the moment. I'd say Jed Spence is maybe a little bit more higher, but Brennan Johnson is at least a Premier League player, if not maybe a Europa League player. Currently, I would say, I think if a West Ham came in for him, I think he would do really, really well there. Sort of on a similar sort of leveling as when Jared Bowen and Saeed Benrahma went to West Ham a couple of years back. So he's going straight in the keep category. I think unless you're seeing a bid worth, I would say, north of 25 million quid, I wouldn't look to even entertain anything below that, so he's staying in the keep category for me. Next up is Brian Ojeda, somebody who hasn't played a huge amount, came in with a lot of hype in the summer from Paraguay and hasn't really done very much so far, hasn't played a lot of minutes. There were some work permit issues that prevented him from joining until last summer, and to be fair, in the minutes I've seen him play, I've been pretty impressed by him so far. I think he's got a pretty decent ceiling, if not, you know, at least as a squad option, if not as somebody who can push into that position next season, particularly seeing as James Garner's probably going to go back to United next season and at least be a squad member for them. I would definitely like to see Ojeda get some minutes for us in the running as well, see if he can establish himself a position in that team. So he is also hopefully going to stay beyond this summer and in this squad. Ryan Yates is going in the keep category as well. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. New contract a couple of weeks ago, has become very much one of our most influential players in the squad at the moment. Defensively is so solid. He's actually starting to add a little bit more to his game going forward, in a really good run of goal scoring form from that central midfield position, and his size and physicality and his presence from set pieces is a really invaluable asset to his game, and I think he's only going from strength to strength. He's only going to get better and is very quickly turning into one of our best players, so he's staying straight in that keep category. Joe Lolly is staying in keep as well. He's a good squad option, much like Xander Silva. He comes off the bench and he's doing really well, and it's starting to look like he's getting back up to fitness. He's missed really the best part of the last year, it feels like, with that knee injury that's just been completely persistent and keeping him out. And I feel really bad for him because he's a top bloke, a really nice guy, and he's probably my favourite Forest player in the squad at the moment. He just comes across so well and does a lot of great stuff for charity as well. So I'd love to keep him in the squad just for those reasons. But obviously he's a top player as well. I remember sort of around 2019 him having an absolute blinder of a season for us and basically keeping us in the hunt for at least staying in the division. So yeah, he's staying in that position for me, in that sort of squad role. And if Brennan goes in the summer, he's at least a decent option coming in to replace him on that right hand side. Jonathan Panzo also stays in the keep category. Obviously hasn't played for us yet, which obviously, you know, needs to probably play before we can even judge him, but I think he's a really promising prospect for us at the moment. A really good left-sided centre-back, something we don't have a lot of in the squad at the moment. Can play a left wing-back as well, and that versatility will suit him well in this team, and I think next season he's going to be one to watch for Forest. I mean, the next few of these are pretty self-explanatory. They're all pretty key first team squad members. Scott McKenna goes in the keep category as well. He has gone pretty under the radar actually. Joe Worrell's got a lot of the plaudits in that defence this season from the media, but if you actually look under the hood, Scott McKenna has been elite this season, probably top 3 centre-backs in the division this season. He's been fantastic for us, wins all his duels. He's so solid in the air, so solid on the ground, and he's starting to have a little bit more going forward as well. I remember, I think, was it against Reading? I can't remember. A couple of weeks back he was very involved when the goals bursting forth from that left centre-back position, playing a really nice 1-2 with himself and Max Lowe and creating a chance, a really good goal scoring opportunity. Now, not come to mention, I think it was against Bristol, because I think it was James Garner who scored it. Either way, very important player for us, and it's been fantastic this season, and arguably one of the probably most underrated members of that squad at the moment, I would say. Steve Cook also goes in the keep category. He's been very influential. We are the 3rd best defence in the league in terms of goals conceded, and a big part of that has been his arrival in January. He's just helped tighten things up at the back. A real sure, composed head in the back line for us, giving Worrell and McKenna that sort of luxury to go forward and play in a little bit more of an advanced position. His ability to sweep up at the back is fantastic. Obviously has Premier League experience as well, having played with Bournemouth in the division for about 3 or 4 years, and obviously if we do get promoted this season or in the next couple of years, that's going to be invaluable experience because we don't have a lot of Premier League experience in this side at the moment. Bryce Samba also goes in keep. I mean, we're basically out of players to sell at the moment. Bryce Samba is obviously being kept in the squad. He is fantastic. He is a really solid goalkeeper. Again, I would argue probably in the top 3 goalkeepers in the league this season. Certainly if you look at things like save percentage and clean sheets this season, he ranks very highly in the division and is a very important part of why we've conceded so few goals this season. And actually over the last 2 seasons, we were the 5th best defence, I think, in the league last season, conceding less than a goal a game. This season, we're conceding less than a goal a game as well, despite the fact we were bottom after like 7 games under Chris Hughton. And he's been a big part of that. He's been so solid since joining a few years back and has been a real consistent performer for us, which is something we've lacked, particularly in the last few years or so. And finally, we round this tier list out with Jimmy Garner. Obviously, he goes in the keep category with the biggest asterisk you've ever seen in your life next to it. The chances of him joining in the summer, much like Jed Spence, are minimal. I think they rest on a few things. Firstly, us getting promoted to the Premier League this season is a big must. He's not playing Championship football next season. He is too good to be doing that. The second depends on who Man United appoint as their manager next season. I feel like if it's a Ten Hag or if it's a Pochettino, he's probably going to be staying at the club or at least getting a shout in some European and cup competitions because they like to develop young players. And thirdly, obviously, it's whether he wants to come back to the club or not. He spent 2 very good years here. He knows the city, he knows the club. If we do get promoted to the Premier League next season, I would like to think that both he and the club, Manchester United, would give us first options as to whether he joins us in the summer on loan if they're looking to move him on into a Premier League club to get him some Premier League experience. Of course, though, that's my opinion. Let me know what you think of that situation in the comment section down below. But personally, I believe Garner's probably not going to be playing with us next season unless all 3 of those criteria are met, and they are very, very unlikely to happen. I think all 3 of them. So there we go, wrapping up our tier list of who I would sell and who I would keep in the current Nottingham Forest team. As you can see, we've only actually got 4 players in the sell category. I think we're pretty run thin at the moment in terms of the squad, but I think the 4 players that we are looking at getting rid of, or that I would choose to get rid of, I think I'm pretty well justified in the options I've given. As usual, I will leave this tier list in the description for you to go and do yourself. Let me know who you would choose to sell from this team or not bring back on loan next season. Personally, I think this is one of the better configurations. There's maybe a couple of players in there you could go either way, or you could look at loaning out, but I think more or less there is pretty much a really good core of a team that you can add some really good additions to, and with some players coming back off loan. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like down below and subscribe whilst you're down there, turning on notifications so you don't miss a single video. And we're getting so close to 500 subscribers, so if you can help me hit that by the summer, I'll be very, very much appreciative. Sorry as well, my voice has been a bit hoarse in this video. I'm still recovering off of COVID, so hopefully the next couple of weeks the voice and the videos will start returning back to normal. With that being said though, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your weekend, enjoy the international break as much as you can at least. I will catch you next week. Later.